You're listening to the FairTax for All radio program, where we bring you everything and anything fair tax related. And now, your host, Alex Molesky.
Welcome to the FairTax for All radio show, where our discussion is centered around the current U.S. income tax code and the IRS. Our main goals are to educate and inform in order to eliminate the IRS and our horrendous tax code. Listen in this next hour, and I promise you that you will be entertained and learn something. As always, I like to give a brief intro to the bill that will actually do this. The Fair Tax Bill is a bill that eliminates the IRS and replaces the current income tax code with a national sales tax of 23% on new goods and services not used. No more FICA taxes out of your paychecks. The 23% sales tax collects the tax dollars needed to fund Medicare and Social Security. The fair tax does not eliminate any government plans, folks, just the collection method of taxation. I'm sure there's a lot of plans I'd like to get rid of or restructure, but that's not the fair tax bill. Now, in addition to replacing the income tax, the fair tax also provides each Social Security card-holding person a monthly rebate check to cover the 23% sales tax up to the poverty level. This is not welfare. It is only to ensure we are not taxed on the necessities of life. The fair tax lowers the tax rate on every tax bracket and at the same time helps to address the issue of our growing unsustainable national debt. National debt, and also to make sure, as I've mentioned before, that Medicare is there when we need it. It is a plan that shrinks the size of government and puts every American in a better financial position. What better bipartisan bill could there be out there, folks? I want you to go to fairtaxcalculator.org and enter your own numbers to see if you'd be better off under the fair tax. Last week on our show, I had Tony Tangelos, the man behind the huge Prepperfest event this weekend, October 25th and 26th at Westworld in Phoenix. It's still going on this Sunday from 10 till 4 p.m., so 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. So go to prepperfestaz.com for directions. And come out and see me at the Fair Tax and the Unfair Movie booth. We'll be at booth 614. We still are. It is big. It is fun. I also covered a conversation I had with last week, former IRS employee that I was not giving any names to. It was enlightening, I guess is a good word. And we also had the great movie night last week. So visit our website, molesky.com. You can check out this last show. All the old shows are put there. And I also have video up there and graphs that help you follow the show a little better in case I start going into detail on any type of a tax bill or any kind of a chart that demands, graphics with it. So check it out, molesky.com, all the old podcast. This week on our show, I'm very excited because I think that we have two very, very strong candidates here in Arizona here on the show, and I'm so glad they are giving us some of their valuable time to share their plans for the state of Arizona and the United States of America. Wendy Rogers, United States Congressional Candidate for District 9 here in Arizona, has graciously allowed me to record my show on site at her campaign headquarters here in Tempe. So what you need to do is you need to watch the video. Get to see me. I'm dressed up a little bit because I didn't want to look so shabby like I do in my home studio or at the 960 headquarters studio. So, check it out. You get to see a little bit of the campaign headquarters. She will join me in the second half of the show. I also have another great candidate here in Arizona, Michele Reagan. She's running for Arizona Secretary of State, and I believe she's going to be with us in just a minute. So stay tuned. It should be a great show, and I want you to listen in for this next hour to soak up some great fair tax information, learn about two phenomenal candidates here in the state. And after the show, Mr. Dennis Prager, another fair tax fan, will be on to inform and entertain. Let's get moving along. I have Michele Reagan, small business owner, state senator, and candidate for Secretary of State, calling in to talk a bit about two areas of interest to her. Michele, thank you so much for calling in to our show today.
Well, thank you so much. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Before we get into the interview, I'm going to tell you one reason why I want to give Michele time today. I know she's a fan of the fair tax, which is a federal bill. since she's running for Secretary of State, the FairTax or even tax reform is not going to be one of her job descriptions when elected Secretary of State. So with elections coming up in less than 2 weeks, I'm not going to pester her with chat about taxes. I just know that knowing that we have a potential to have another great tax mind elected on November 24th excites me, and one we might be able to chat with in years to come on the topic of tax reform statewide and nationwide. Michele is here today to talk about two things, both topics she's very familiar with from her previous experience in professional life, plus her political elected and appointed positions. Today, I believe we're going to talk about commerce issues and ballot harvesting. So, Michele, I might have a question or two if I'm slow to grasp something, but I'm going to let you take it from here since you are the expert of information in these two areas.
Well, I do hope you have some questions. These are big topics and obviously very timely with being just about, 11 days from the election. Big election across the country and, of course, in Arizona. Secretary of State in Arizona is a very unique role. Arizona is one of only a handful of states that does not have a lieutenant governor. So in Arizona, the Secretary of State is next in line to the governor. But then in addition to that, it has various roles, everything from managing the state's complex business filings. When you're a new business and you come to town in Arizona, one of the first stops you make is to the Secretary of State's office. So it handles a lot of administrative duties, business filings, all of the transactions going from actually the state legislature to Congress, and then from Congress back again. All of those transmittals all go through the Secretary of State's office. All of the archives and records of the state's history are with the Secretary of State's office. And then on top of that, it manages and oversees the state's entire elections system. And I don't think anybody can argue that our most fundamental right in this country is the right to vote. And to make sure that right is protected, that it is a fair system. And I have a very easy way of looking at the elections process, and that is that it should be easy to vote and hard to cheat. And what I mean by that is easy to vote. If you are eligible to vote, it should be as easy as possible for you to make your voice heard. There should be no hurdles, hurdles put in place for you to have to be able to cast your ballot. There should be multiple ways for you to be able to make your voice heard, whether you like to vote by mail, whether it's in person, whether you like to vote early and be on lists where you don't need to worry about signing up each time for your ballot. But then follow it up. The gold standard is make it hard to cheat. And people, when they say, well, the system is 100% fraud-free, they're sticking their head in the sand if they think that. We have seen all over the state instances where we are creating opportunities that are ripe for fraud because we don't have the proper laws in place. And I, as a state senator, stuck my neck out and tried to close some of these loopholes. And they were common sense solutions to things that I didn't think anybody could argue with. And what ended up happening was I poked a hornet's nest. Groups got very, very upset with me, and the more angry they got with some of these common sense solutions, the more I said, wow, what have I stumbled onto? And that's what I appreciate you inviting me on your show today, because I want your listeners to know about some of these issues, especially as we head into Election Day, because I really want to be your next Secretary of State so that I can close these loopholes, because, again, it should be easy to vote and hard to cheat. And let's get people out there voting. Let's make sure their voices count. And let's also make sure that people who shouldn't be voting aren't voting, and make sure that when people turn in their ballots, they're actually making it to the polling places. And that's where I'm wondering and a little leery that that's not happening in all the places around the state. That's what we call ballot harvesting.
Ballot harvesting.
And
that's where union groups and other groups, they go to door in neighborhoods, for older people that can't get out, or poor people, poor neighborhoods, and they just ask for the ballots?
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily just union groups, or it's not party specific. It's not aimed at any particular groups. We're seeing this in Arizona because Arizona's laws are very lax. And let me give you an example. We started hearing a couple of years ago the county election officials around the state, who are nonpartisan, by the way, started getting complaints that people were showing up at their doors saying, I'm here with the county of X. Let's say I'm here with Yuma County, or I'm here with Maricopa County, and I'm here to pick up your ballot. And, voters sometimes, are unaware. They lead lives. They have jobs, and they go to work, and they have families, and they don't know that county officials don't do that they don't come and pick up your ballot. Ballots are meant, if you vote early, to be mailed back in. So some of these citizens were calling in to the county, thankfully, and saying, do you pick up ballots? And the county officials were saying, no, we don't do that. So it led our county officials around the state to wonder, who's doing this? And some of these groups, and some of them we don't know who they are, were so sophisticated that they actually had T-shirts made up that would say, in the case of Maricopa County Elections Office.
Oh, wow.
A gentleman, I'm the chair of the Elections Committee in the Senate, and our elections director, Karen Osborne, came and testified, so this isn't hearsay, she came and testified in committee that somebody went to someone's door with one of these T-shirts on, and he happened to knock on the door of someone who works for county elections. Okay?
Sorry.
And so, so they know this is happening. And so they came to the state, and they said, we need somebody to pass legislation to make this, first of all, one, illegal. And I was surprised. I said, this isn't illegal? Yes, it's illegal to represent the county, but people didn't. It is perfectly legal to go door to door in Arizona right now and collect 100 ballots, 1,000 ballots, and to walk into a polling place on Election Day and drop them off.
Well, I think we need to stop that, Michele, and I know you have a plan for it. We're going to go to break for a minute. Looks like I'm going to be moved around somewhere else in Wendy Rogers' offices, but I'll be on the air in time for you folks. So stay tuned for these messages, and we'll be right back with Michele Reagan and hear from Wendy Rogers headquarters. Welcome back to the FairTax for All radio show. I'm your host, Alex Molesky, here from Wendy Rogers, Congressional Candidate for District 9 headquarters here in Tempe, having a fun time. I did have to shift around. You might see my surroundings are a little bit different. They're being very accommodating, but they had to have a meeting where I couldn't be involved making too much noise. And I make noise, I know. Right now, I am so grateful to have Michele Reagan, who is running for Secretary of State here in the great state of Arizona, and she is a wonderful candidate. I know she's a fan of the FairTax, but we're not talking about FairTax. We were talking about ballot harvesting and the concerns of people basically going around to house illegally and collecting up to hundreds of returns of ballots and putting the votes their way. To the best of my knowledge, as citizens of this great country, we're allowed one vote and one vote only. So, Michele, this isn't shady at all what's going on, and it wasn't a hearsay, as Michele said. People went to the door wearing false made-up T-shirts with lies on it to the wrong people. The wrong people caught them in action, and it's Michelle's job to get to the bottom of this as Secretary of State, and you need to vote for somebody who will take care of us, somebody who's a small business owner, somebody who understands those needs of people coming into the state, as she mentioned, with commerce issues. Great. I don't know. I know who I'm voting for. I'm not going to say it on air, but I know who I'm voting for, or I should say who I already voted for and handed in my early ballot without anybody else coercing it from me and me coming to my own decisions. But How can we stop the ballot harvesting fraud going on in Arizona, Michele?
Well, right now, I think it's important to point out that it's completely legal, and that's legal to be going around and collecting ballots. And that's the problem, is that we don't have the laws sufficient in place to outlaw this. And I always like to point out that we are the only state in the country that allows this kind of activity. So I'm very careful to make sure that I say the groups that are going and collecting these ballots, they're not breaking any laws. It is completely legal right now for them to do this, and we need to make it illegal. And so that's the first thing we need to do. And the biggest thing that we need to stop is the ability for people to be walking into polling places with bushels of ballots. And I'm talking that literally our county recorders have seen people pull up in their cars and pop the trunk and carry in laundry baskets full of ballots. And I want you to think of these ballots as people's voices. Inside each one of those envelopes is somebody's voice. And, when you go into a polling place on Election Day, there's curtains available if you wish to use one. And there's curtains for a reason, and that's because voting to many people is a very private thing. It's your voice. And voting, to many people, it should be that way. I don't know when we turned voting into a group sport. This is something that it's your voice. It's not supposed to be shoved in the trunk of a car. It's not supposed to be put in a laundry basket and kept who knows where until Election Day and then dropped off. I mean, that was never the way that early voting or mail-in ballots were supposed to work. They're delivered to you via the mail. You vote it, you seal it, sign it, and you mail it back in. And if you forget, or if you don't think it's going to make it in time, you can walk it in yourself to a polling place and drop it off. And you can walk it into any polling place and drop it off. And your voice will be heard and your ballot will be cast.
Right.
So,
and in my case, I made a mistake once, Michele, actually in the primaries, and I crossed the wrong line through, and I'm like, oh darn. Well, you know what? I didn't have time to get another ballot, so I walked it in, and they gave me a replacement ballot. That's
right.
all.
And they allow you to vote provisional when that happens. They just want to make sure you don't vote twice. And there's even an online tool, which is really, most people don't realize we have this. It's a great tool. If you ever have to vote provisional, or even if you're voting early, and I always check this every year, I mail in my ballot, and then I just want to make sure that they actually got it. You can go online on the Secretary of State's website or on the county recorder website, and we actually have these links on my website. There's links to both of these websites. You can go check and see, was your early ballot counted? Did they receive it? All you have to do is type in either your voter ID number or your driver's license number. There's a couple of options it gives you, and it'll tell you, yep, we received your early ballot. Just, to make sure, did it get there? And you can do that with provisional ballots as well, because sometimes you wonder, they give you one of those provisionals and you think, did they really count that? Well, yes, they absolutely. Sometimes it takes them an extra couple days, but they that's their job, and you have the ability to check that. So, this is important. People always think their vote doesn't, really matter, doesn't really count. Well, you ask somebody that was in some of these primary races where they won by 80 votes, or one of my friends that's returning to the legislature won his race by 13 votes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so we can't allow this voter fraud.
Yeah, you ask him, does everybody's vote matter? And you bet it does. And so, people just, important to get out and use your right to vote. And then important on the end of government to make sure that they're following the rules too. Get those ballots in, get them counted, and make sure that people's voices are being heard. I mean, that's what elections are all about, and that's the job of the Secretary of State's office, to make sure that system is running properly. Easy to vote, hard to cheat. That's the gold standard. That's what we should be striving for. And our laws are lax in certain areas.
Well, I'm glad that we have somebody like you running, somebody that's looking out for us, somebody who's going to make our votes count, one vote count, just one vote.
My race
and you'll be
is
working
neck
towards
and
voter fraud. I'm sorry?
My race is neck and neck right now. I mean, it could not be more close if we tried. So anybody that's listening and thinks, her last name's Reagan, she's got to be doing great. We're a red state, right? No.
No, it's close,
neck
Michele.
and neck.
We only have about a minute left in this segment, so give your website to people, and I will encourage them also to get involved. Call her office, go down to her office, make phone calls for her. You can always use money to buy more ad space, even if it's only $5 or $10. It really adds up if you're a fan. But give your website address for everybody, please.
Easy website, votereagan.com. It's VOTE and then Reagan, REAGAN, just like the guy who's a little more famous than I am. So votereagan.com. I would appreciate anybody checking me out. And regardless whether you choose to vote for me or not, please do exercise your very, very important right and get out there and vote on November 4th.
Michele, thank you so much for joining me on the show. You've enlightened me, and I'm sure my audience too. I encourage listeners to go to votereagan.com, make a donation, or contact the office to see how you can help. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, and have a great weekend. We'll be out campaigning.
Absolutely. Folks, she also has other things I'm going to list up on my website. She has lobbyist spending to be reported in real time. We didn't get a chance to get to that, but she has some great ideas to protect us here in the state of Arizona. Go to her site, check out where she stands on things. It's full of great information. Great fan of tax reform, but unfortunately that's not part of her job here. But check it out. We're going to go to break. We're going to be right back with Wendy Rogers after these messages, folks. Welcome back to the FairTax for All radio show. I'm your host, Alex Molesky, and we're recording here from Wendy Rogers, Congressional Candidate for District 9 in the great state of Arizona's headquarters here in Tempe, Arizona. And we're having a great time moving around, really busy here in this office. And I'm so pleased to be able to have her on the show here today because we have at least 3 very tight congressional races here in the state of Arizona. And she's a champion of essentially fiscal conservatism, and however you want to put it. I mean, is that a word yet? I'm just rambling on here, but I'm sold on the fact that this is a great tax woman. We're lucky she's a small businesswoman. Successful small businesswoman who understands things like that. She also understands a little bit about our national defense, flying planes for the Air Force. So I know you're incredibly busy. Should I call you Lieutenant Colonel? Should I just call you Wendy? You're very easy to talk to person, but I know how incredibly busy you are at this time. I appreciate you giving us some space here in your headquarters and your valuable time for just coming on the show here and talking with us. So thank you very much for joining us.
Alex, it's my honor entirely. And yes, we're sitting here at 3030 South Rural in our business office complex that my husband and I just are proud to say we just saved and paid it off about a year ago. And this strikes at the heart of fiscal conservatism and how one can succeed if one saves one's pennies and is frugal and meets the market demand. We own a home inspection company, Housemaster Home Inspections. It's a franchise, and the picture of you, Alex, here in our office is already out on Twitter with housemaster.com. And it's an honor to be here, but also to be an American. Where else than America can a woman be one of the first 100 women pilots in the Air Force, come back to Arizona where she went to pilot training with her husband and small children, retire from the Air Force, open a business, as we have done, and then 18 years later still be creating jobs in an entrepreneurially friendly state like Arizona. My dad and mom raised me to be very frugal, but also to embrace the American spirit, American exceptionalism, and to do everything I can to make it in this world on hard work and follow through. And I remember when my dad was alive, he used to come out here and he'd say, every time I come here to Arizona, I'm struck by the fact that there are so many workmen's trucks out on the road. There are so many entrepreneurs, so many vehicles that have decals on them from people's small businesses. He used to be struck by that. And I said, Dad, that's why we came to Arizona. That's why we opened a home inspection business out of our living room, homeschooled our children, and carried it forward. And now we own this building. We have 7 other tenants here, and they're all small business owners. And not a one of them is a whiner, okay? Each one of them works incredibly hard, pays his rent, pays her rent. We have a hairdressing salon. She just celebrated her 1-year anniversary here. Intimate Styles, Xavier, great haircut. Everybody come on over. We have Allstate Insurance here. We have a printer, Baca Printing here on the back side. On the back side of our office complex, by the way, we have a garden where we plant vegetables and everybody can partake in those vegetables. That's more cost effective than just mowing grass. Every inch of what my husband and I use, we utilize, and we want it to bear fruit. And it is my honor to serve my country as an officer in the Air Force, as the 5th generation to serve in my family, but also to be a small business owner and to embrace the American spirit. And that's what we do over here at 3030 South Rural. Our campaign is here. We have had an incredible outpouring of grassroots support. People coming in every day to make phone calls, to pick up a yard sign. This race is breaking our way because we are of this district. My husband and I have lived here for 18 years. We raised our children here. We have grandchildren here. They were just at the office yesterday. It's a wonderful thing, and I will go to Congress to serve my country. And that's what we need right now. Honestly, are people in Congress who understand what having a backbone is about, who understand about balancing the books, who understand that taxes inhibit small business owners. Taxes get in the way. It is not up to the government to create jobs. It is up to the government to get out of the way so we small business owners can create jobs.
Amen. And as you just said, we small business owners, small business owner folks, I moved to Arizona for the opportunities of my business in the better work environment from the state of New Jersey, which I loved, but I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have Wendy Rogers on our show. We're going to go to break for just a moment, and we'll be right back with a little more talk. And I have a question about an endorsement receipt, too. Welcome back to the FairTax for All radio show. I'm your host, Alex Molesky, right here at Wendy Rogers, Congressional Candidate for District 9 here in Arizona's headquarters in Tempe, Arizona. Having a good time chatting with Wendy. I wanted to bring something up. She's talking about being a small business owner, a successful small business owner. Her resume is amazing. Lieutenant Colonel, flying big planes for the Air Force, protecting us, keeping us protected, understanding what the military needs, and obviously looking out for our veterans. Both her and her husband served. Her son serves as a Marine, I believe. He's
out now, a Marine officer, yes.
Wow. But what I'm excited about, I was at a meeting the other week at NFIB. It's a Small Business Association here in Arizona. They don't just throw out their endorsements, but I was listening to my congressman in District 6, David Schweikert, chat about things. They endorse him strongly, and I'm, as I said, a District 6, a District 6 resident, but I'm out here in District 9 doing my show here because we have somebody who's a strong fiscal conservative, a strong pro-business person here for the people of Arizona. What I find an all-around very, very positive candidate. And I have to choose my words carefully here, folks, because my show here is in support of a bill that is bipartisan. So I have to be very careful not to sound like I'm gushing more than I am. But, I can't help it. When somebody good comes along, heck, I'm excited. I want you to go on. I know you have some more things to talk about, but talk about the NFIB endorsement, because you know what? That's big. For anybody who's a small business owner, like I said, they're very careful who they support.
We love NFIB. NFIB, National Federation of Independent Businesses. Their plaque is on the front door of our office here and in the lobby of our office. It's the only organization we fly the flag of, as it were. And Farrell Quinlan is the state rep, and he is one of the most articulate advocates for small business that one could meet. And this is essential for Americans to understand and get behind. 7 out of 10 jobs in the United States are produced by small business. It is small business. It is we who employ Americans. And in my particular business of home inspections, my husband Hal is the chief home inspector. It is he who takes the job last. We make sure that our home inspectors have jobs before Hal takes the job. And that's really representative, I think, of most small business owners who have to dip into their own savings to make payroll if it doesn't work, and who have complete skin in the game. That's so different than how the government looks at things, where it's just this nebulous entity that may or may not be accountable for what it does. And in many cases, we see more money thrown at something that's been unsuccessful. But in small business and in the private sector, you have to be successful before you can get more money. And you have to be able to promote your idea, to sell your brand, and to stand behind it, and to be there for customer service. And so I carry that with me to Congress. And when people come to my state district office after I'm elected, I'll know what customer service is about. I will understand that follow-up and follow-through are essential. And that is how we serve. And that interconnects with really my core consistency of character, which is to serve. I was privileged, as being the daughter of an Army officer, the granddaughter of an Army officer, all the way back. My antecedents go to the Civil War, and it is in my DNA to serve. And so our son was a Marine officer. My husband was an Air Force officer. This is about service to country, and only 19% of Congress right now, only 19% of Congress right now is comprised of military veterans. Back in 1960, it was 80% veterans. So one has to ask, why do we have these problems on the border where we have a porous border? Why do we have decision-making voids and lack of leadership in Congress? I would argue that it's because we don't have enough veterans in Congress. And this transcends party in many respects, because Democrats serve, Republicans serve in the military, and independents serve in the military. Military people know how to get things done because they're first taught how to follow, how to listen, how to be accountable, how to be a team player, how to get things done. They look for what is in common in order to get the mission done. They look for what is agreed upon, and they celebrate what is agreed upon and what is in common to move forward. And that is the kind of skill set that I will take to Congress, both as 20 years working in the government, in the military, and then now having been a small business owner for 18 years in what you could say is probably the most roller coaster industry in Arizona, real estate. In the home inspection industry, and any of you who've purchased a house have gone through the home inspection process. We go into people's homes every day. They trust us to render an accurate, systemic and structural finding on the condition of the home that they're about to spend their nest egg on. There is a huge element of trust in us, in what we do. every day out in the marketplace. And it's incumbent on us to be fair and consistent and reliable and truthful. And we get pressure, but we stay steady. And I was telling my adult kids last night at dinner, I said, it's a lot like Congress. You know, we get pressured to bend, but we have to remain truthful and objective in the findings that we render on the condition of this home, because the buyer is relying on us as the home inspection company to give an accurate evaluation of this house that he or she is about to spend a bundle of money on. And we take that sacredly.
I should have found out before I came in here today if you were the ones that looked into my home back in 2011. It's very possible. It's very possible. Whoever did it did a great job. But, you know, I can't even ask the questions because you're already saying the things that I keep coming up with in my mind. I know with the military, you were flying a big plane. What kind of plane was that again? I'm just curious.
I piloted the C-141 Starlifter, which is a Lockheed jet, which is now at the Davis-Monthan Boneyard, but it carried 200 troops or 13 pallets of cargo. And it's funny you asked me, because one of my home inspectors yesterday told me this at lunch. He said, Wendy, I think you need to be reminded that I was a young Marine and you flew me back in the 1980s. I said, Chuck, I don't, how can that be? He said, I remember distinctly. He said, this is what you looked like. And we were all murmuring, oh my gosh, we have a woman pilot. What are we going to do? We're going to crash. And this was in the 1980s. And I said, I kind of remember that because the loadmaster was telling me on headset that the Marines were murmuring amongst themselves about a woman being at the controls. But I said, Chuck, I remember the minute we lifted off from Kadena Air Base in Okinawa. I remember this, that everybody cheered. And he said, well, of course, because you were taking us home, because we had been deployed for 6 months, and we didn't care what the gender was at the controls. We were going home. And that crystallizes really what the wonderful all-hands-on-deck mission of the military mindset is. We're going home. And we are in this together. And the mission is what matters. And I carry that with me in my mind and in my heart, because this country, in many respects, is hanging by a slender thread, as another housemaster owner friend of mine in Virginia has told me. We've had support from other housemaster home inspection franchise owners for my campaign from all over the country, because they know what's at stake, and from other donors all over the country. And I just submit to all of you there in the listening audience, if you want to have a direct impact on a federal race, you might not be able to vote for me, but I can vote for you. And if you want to help me, you can go to my website, which is very straightforward. It's my name, wendyrogers.org. Wendy, like the hamburgers, Rogers, like Roy Rogers, wendyrogers.org. And when you go there, you will see what I'm talking about. You will see the groundswell of support from everywhere that has come on board to support this campaign.
Wendy Rogers, folks. She brings precious cargo home from overseas. She considers the citizens of the great state of Arizona precious cargo. She's handled her business and the homes that people buy as precious to her clients. This is somebody I would like representing me. I'm fortunate that I have a great Congressman and David Schweikert in my 6th district. I'm supporting other great candidates around the state of Arizona, and that's why I specifically came down here to Tempe today to support her. Retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. She's running for Congress. If you're interested, again, wendyrogers.org. I have a link to her campaign up at my site, Molesky.com, in case you don't want to write that down and you already frequent my site. Sign up at her site online to volunteer or to contribute. I know your support would be appreciated. It's such an obvious need to me and you, and I feel it is so important to highlight those like Colonel Rogers that are willing to actually represent the people. She gets it. She really gets what it is to serve the people. She did it with her service in the Air Force and as a 5th-generation military member. I guess country and citizens is just ingrained. Again, you can find all our information at our website, wendyrogers.org. I can't encourage you enough to help in support of her campaign. It is a tight election cycle. This is a great candidate. I'm going to be working here after the show today, making phone calls for her. As she said, she made a very good point. I can't vote for her, but why am I here? Because I know down the road she's going to be voting for me on issues that are important to me. So join me here. Come on down right now. Go to our website. We have a great opportunity to get a fiscal conservative in the 9th District. 9th District, I think you are very, very lucky. One more thing. Saturday from 10 to 7, the phone banks. We're going to be having a great time here. I have a feeling they're going to have coffee for the early people. It's a good, fun time to come down and meet her. There's going to be food, and the address is 3030 South Rural Avenue, Suite 120. It's in Tempe. It's really, really easy to get to. I hopped all the way up from in North Scottsdale to get here. You jump on the 101, you take it south, you pass the 202, a couple exits more is exit 60. You go west for about only a mile or two.
Rural and southern.
Rural and southern.
Just north of southern, north of the Walmart.
Just north of the Walmart on the left, you'll see a 3030. It's pretty well marked. There's signs out there. There's lots of blue signs for Wendy Rogers. Wendy, we'll have a lot of fun. I do want to mention a couple of things coming up because we only have about a minute and a half here left on the show. What do we have going around this great state? For those of you that were at the Wounded Warriors race yesterday, thank you so much. That was Saturday. We're pre-taping the show, so I'm going backwards in time a little bit. I salute all the warriors, regardless if you raced or not. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to show our appreciation. And as I always say on the show, whenever I find a veteran, thank you for your service, Wendy. Thank any veteran here, your husband, your son. It enables me to get on the air and gripe a little bit. As long as I'm not hurting anyone else and I'm not breaking the Constitution, one of my rights here is to get on the air and talk about stuff. Those of you at the Prepper Fest, it's halfway through. It's just a fun new thing that I'm actually, onto because I just want to learn about a little bit more about just everyday survival stuff. That's at the Tony Nelson Equestrian Center in Westworld. Come visit me Sunday from 10 to 4. Actually, you missed the 10 to 7 spot. I just realized that. But that'll be next week, too. The phone banks again.
Every day except Sunday.
Every day except Sunday, folks. So come back. Help Wendy make those calls. Just if 100 or 300 of you came out, we get it all done. And we get a great fiscal conservative in the House. Thanks for listening in, folks. We'll be back next week and vote November 4th also. Just a reminder, November 4th. Vote.